Number 10. Saying yes when you mean no. There's a moment many people know too well. The moment you hear yourself agreeing while every part of you silently screams, "I don't want this." Your voice says yes, but your heart sinks. Maybe you don't want conflict. Maybe you're scared of disappointing someone. Maybe you've been trained to believe that your needs belong at the very bottom of the list. Whatever the reason, that single word becomes a habit, a silent contract where you sacrifice your comfort to protect someone else's feelings. And slowly, something subtle begins to shift. You stop checking what you actually want. You react automatically, agreeing before you even think. You become the dependable one, the good one, the person everyone can count on, except you. Over time, every forced yes becomes a quiet betrayal. Your boundaries weaken. Your self-respect fades. Your emotional voice grows faint until eventually, you struggle to identify what you like, what you hate, or what truly matters to you. You don't lose control all at once. You lose it in tiny moments where your truth is swallowed to maintain peace. But here's the reality most people never say out loud. Saying no isn't rejection. It's clarity. It's honesty. It's saying, my time, my energy, and my emotional space matter too. The people meant for your life won't crumble because you set boundaries. The only ones who disappear are the ones who benefited from the absence of them. So ask yourself, are you living your life or performing it? Because the world will adjust when you learn to speak your truth, calmly, firmly, unapologetically. Number 9. Smiling while suppressing anger. There is a specific kind of smile people don't talk about. The one that appears not because you're happy, but because you don't know what else to do with the storm inside you. You smile when someone disrespects you. You smile when a joke crosses a boundary. You smile when you feel ignored, controlled, or misunderstood. And on the outside, it looks harmless, polite, composed, mature. But inside, something burns quietly, unseen. Suppressing anger doesn't make you calm. It makes you disconnected. You begin distancing yourself from your own emotional truth. Anger is not the enemy. Anger is communication. It is a signal that something you value is being stepped on. Your dignity, your boundaries, your peace. But when you repeatedly silence that signal, two things happen. First, your nervous system learns that your emotions don't matter. Your body stops trusting you to protect it. Second, the anger doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes resentment, exhaustion, bitterness, or emotional numbness. You stop reacting not because you're healed, but because you're tired. And the worst part? Eventually, you don't just silence anger, you silence yourself. But imagine something different. A version of you who lets your face match your truth. A version who can say, "That wasn't okay," without guilt. A version who doesn't soften their voice just to make others comfortable. That version isn't rude. That version is authentic. You don't have to explode. You don't have to fight. You simply have to stop abandoning your feelings to protect someone else's perception of you. Your anger deserves space, not to destroy, but to guide, to protect, to realign you with respect. So next time your chest tightens and your smile feels forced, pause. Your feelings are speaking. This time, let them be heard. Number 8. Distracting yourself with screens when upset. There's a moment you felt before. The heaviness in your chest, the quiet ache in your mind, the feeling that something isn't right. Instead of sitting with it, you reach for the nearest escape, scrolling endlessly, jumping between apps, watching videos you don't even care about. Not because you're interested, but because silence feels threatening. Screens offer noise, movement, distraction, something, anything, to avoid being alone with what you're feeling. But here's the hidden truth. Every time you run from your emotions, you teach your brain that your feelings are dangerous, overwhelming, too much to handle. And over time, the gap between what you feel and what you face grows wider. Your phone becomes a shield. Notifications become comfort. The endless feed becomes a substitute for reflection. The emotions don't disappear. They wait. They pile up. They grow heavier until you can't tell whether you're tired, depressed, restless, or simply disconnected from yourself. Your mind becomes busy, but your heart becomes empty. You get used to being overstimulated, yet emotionally starved. The hardest part is that screen distraction feels harmless, even normal. Everyone does it. But emotional avoidance disguised as entertainment slowly disconnects you from your inner world. You stop asking, "Why am I upset? What do I need? What am I avoiding?" Healing begins with one small shift, replacing escape with awareness. Not forever, not perfectly, but sometimes. Instead of scrolling, you pause. Instead of numbing, you breathe. Instead of running, you listen. Your emotions don't want to drown you, they want to inform you. Silence isn't empty. It's the place where your truth finally has space to speak. Number 7. Eating food to avoid processing emotions. There are moments when hunger isn't physical, when the craving isn't for taste but for comfort, distraction, or quiet. You're not eating because your body needs fuel. You're eating because something inside you feels heavy, overwhelming, unprocessed. Food becomes a pause button, a way to avoid emotions you don't know how to name, explain, or confront. You tell yourself it's just one snack, one bite, one moment, but emotional eating isn't about food. It's about escape. A silent agreement with your feelings. I can't deal with you right now. The sweetness numbs the sadness. The crunch distracts the frustration. The fullness replaces the emptiness, temporarily. But once you finish, the truth returns. The feelings you avoided sit quietly beside the guilt, the shame, the confusion, and without realizing it, you begin building a pattern. Emotional discomfort. Food, temporary relief, emotional discomfort again. It's not weakness, it's coping. Your nervous system learned that soothing is easier than sitting with pain, but avoidance steals clarity. The moment you choose food instead of reflection, your emotions become buried instead of understood. And what is buried doesn't vanish, it waits. So what if, just once, instead of reaching for a snack, you paused and asked, what am I truly hungry for? Peace, connection, rest, validation, a release I didn't get? Emotional hunger cannot be fed with physical solutions. Food may silence the noise, but healing begins when you stop running and listen, not with judgment, but with curiosity. You don't need to punish yourself, you need to understand yourself. Because emotional eating isn't a failure, it's a signal. And that signal is saying, something inside you deserves attention, not avoidance. Number 6. Using busyness as escape from reflection. Some people aren't afraid of slowing down. They're afraid of what silence might reveal. So they stay busy. They fill their hours, days, and schedules until there's no space left to think, feel, or question anything. Work becomes a shield. Productivity becomes identity. Constant motion becomes proof that everything is fine. Because as long as you're moving, you don't have to face the emotions waiting in the quiet. But busyness can become a comfortable prison. You convince yourself you're being responsible, ambitious, disciplined, yet somewhere beneath the routine, there's a faint truth whispering, you're running, not progressing. Because healing requires stillness. Reflection requires time. Self-awareness requires space. When you avoid rest, you're not just avoiding slowing down, you're avoiding yourself. Over time, your mind learns a dangerous lesson. If something hurts, drown it in responsibility. If something feels overwhelming, bury it under tasks. If something feels painful, outrun it. But no matter how fast you move, your emotions always travel with you. They show up in random waves of exhaustion, in sudden anxiety, in unexplained sadness, in the feeling that something is off. Even when everything looks successful from the outside, real growth begins the moment you allow space to breathe. Not to be productive, not to plan the next step, but simply to exist. Busyness may feel like control, but reflection is where clarity begins. So pause for a moment. Sit with yourself. Ask gently, what am I avoiding? What needs my attention? What part of me is tired of running? You don't need constant motion to deserve peace. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is stop. Number 5. Avoiding journaling or self-talk. There's a reason some people avoid journaling, not because they don't have time, but because they're afraid of what might show up on the page. A blank page forces honesty. It doesn't accept excuses, distractions, or masks. Writing makes thoughts real, and sometimes facing your own truth feels harder than facing the world. So you avoid reflection. You avoid asking yourself how you feel. You move through life reacting, not understanding. You keep everything inside, unprocessed, unnamed, unresolved. And with time, your emotional world becomes a quiet storage room where memories, fears, disappointments, and unmet needs are stacked away like boxes you never open. But here's the hidden cost. When you don't express your emotions, they don't disappear. They leak. They show up in irritation, overthinking, numbness, sudden tears, or unexplained fatigue. Your mind remembers what you try to forget. Self-talk and journaling are not about being poetic or dramatic. They are permission. Permission to feel without judgment. Permission to admit what hurts. Permission to recognize what you need. When you avoid that process, you lose connection with yourself. You stop knowing your motivations, your triggers, your patterns. You live life from the surface, never accessing the depth beneath. But imagine sitting down and finally listening to the voice inside you, the one that's been waiting, patient, and quiet. You might discover clarity instead of chaos, compassion instead of criticism, truth instead of confusion. Writing or self-reflection isn't weakness. It's emotional courage. It's choosing understanding over avoidance. And sometimes just one honest sentence can become the doorway to healing. So before you run from yourself again, pause and ask, what part of my truth is waiting to be heard? Number 4. Dismissing compliments immediately. It's strange how quickly you reject kindness. Someone says, you did great, and you rush to correct them. It was nothing. Anyone could have done it. I just got lucky. The compliment doesn't even get the chance to land. You block it before it touches you. Not because you want to be humble, but because deep down, part of you believes you don't deserve it. This reflex doesn't come from confidence. It comes from discomfort. Compliments feel unfamiliar. They don't align with the quiet story you've been repeating to yourself. I'm not enough. So praise feels like a mistake. Flattery, an overestimation that needs to be corrected before someone realizes the truth. But rejecting compliments does more harm than you notice. Every time you push away positive feedback, you reinforce a silent message. My value is invisible, accidental, or undeserved. And slowly, this belief becomes automatic. You stop recognizing your progress, your strengths, your growth. You become someone who can celebrate others easily, but never yourself. Here's the painful irony. The things you dismiss in seconds are often the things others genuinely admire. Your effort, your kindness, your resilience, your presence. But if you never allow those words to touch you, how will your self-worth ever grow? Confidence doesn't begin when you achieve more. It begins when you stop rejecting the evidence that you matter. So the next time someone offers a compliment, pause. Resist the urge to shrink, deflect, or argue. Take a breath. Let the words exist. You don't have to fully believe them yet, but you can allow them space. Because sometimes healing isn't about fixing anything. Sometimes it begins with two simple words spoken without apology. Thank you. Number 3. Numbing feelings with alcohol or snacks. There are moments when emotions feel too loud. Loneliness, stress, heartbreak, disappointment. And instead of facing them, you reach for something that makes the noise quieter. A drink, a sugary snack, something that promises relief without requiring reflection. For a few minutes, it works. The ache softens, the heaviness fades. Life feels lighter even if just temporarily. But numbing is not healing, it's postponing pain. And each time you escape rather than feel, you create a silent dependency, not on alcohol or cravings themselves, but on the idea that you can't handle your emotions without them. The truth is, you're not addicted to the substance, you're addicted to avoiding discomfort. What's often misunderstood is that emotional numbing isn't dramatic, it's subtle. It looks like late-night snacking when sadness hits. It looks like just one drink to relax, even when you're not celebrating anything. It looks like reaching for comfort instead of clarity. And slowly, your emotional tolerance weakens. You stop learning how to sit with feelings. You stop trusting yourself to process them. You stop giving yourself a chance to grow. But here's the deeper reality. Your emotions are not threats. They are signals. They exist to be understood, not silenced. When you numb them, you rob yourself of insight, truth, boundaries, and healing. You avoid pain, but you also avoid meaning. Imagine instead allowing the discomfort to exist, without drowning it, without feeding it, without running from it. It may feel overwhelming at first, but over time, you'll realize something powerful. You were never fragile. You were simply never taught how to feel safely. You don't need escape. You need presence, not punishment. Understanding, not avoidance. Connection. Your feelings aren't asking for silence. They're asking for acknowledgement. Number 2. Changing the topic when feelings arise. There's a moment in conversations where everything becomes vulnerable. Someone asks, "How are you really?" Or a feeling surfaces unexpectedly. And instead of staying there, you shift. You joke. You change the subject. You say, "Let's not talk about that." Not because it doesn't matter, but because part of you believes that speaking the truth will make you exposed, weak, or too emotional. Avoiding emotional topics becomes a habit. You become skilled at steering conversations away from anything real. Your pain, your fears, your disappointments. You talk about plans, tasks, weather, or other people's problems because those discussions feel safer, distant, manageable. But emotional avoidance creates distance, not just with others, but with yourself. Over time, you forget how to communicate what you feel. Words like hurt, lonely, confused, or angry feel heavy in your mouth, so you swallow them. You pretend everything is fine. You train yourself to keep emotions locked behind a polite smile or sarcastic comment. But the truth remains. What you avoid grows. Unspoken emotions don't vanish. They turn into tension, anxiety, and emotional numbness. They can make conversations feel shallow, relationships feel disconnected, and life feels strangely empty, even when everything seems normal. But vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the doorway to connection. It's the moment someone sees you, not the version you perform, but the real one you've been protecting. And that version is worthy of expression. So the next time a feeling surfaces, instead of running from it, try staying with it, even for a few seconds longer than usual. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to explain everything. You just need to allow the truth to exist, because healing begins the moment you stop changing the subject and start listening to yourself. Number 1. Telling yourself others have it worse. You've done it before, felt sadness, fear, stress, or heartbreak, and before your emotions could exist for even a moment, another voice appeared. Stop complaining. Other people have it worse. And just like that, your feelings were dismissed, not by someone else, but by you. This habit looks like humility, perspective, or strength, but in reality, it teaches you a dangerous message. Your pain must reach a certain level before it deserves attention. So you compare your wounds to someone else's, someone who seems to be suffering more. Your mind decides theirs is valid, and yours is not. But emotional pain isn't a competition. There is no scoreboard. Suffering doesn't become less real just because someone else is hurting too. When you minimize your feelings, you don't become grateful. You become disconnected. You silence yourself. You bury what needs expression. You learn to endure instead of understand. Over time, this self-dismissal creates emotional distance. You stop trusting your internal signals. You convince yourself you're being dramatic when you're actually overwhelmed. You tell yourself to be strong when what you need is compassion. And slowly, the ability to recognize your own emotional needs fades. Here's the truth. Two things can exist at the same time. Someone else may be struggling, and you may still deserve support, gentleness, time, and healing. Pain doesn't need to be justified. Sadness doesn't need permission. Your feelings deserve space, not comparison. So the next time that voice appears and tries to shut you down, respond gently. My emotions matter, even if others are suffering too. Because validating yourself is not selfish.